Have you ever watched someone pull away right at the moment you felt closest and wondered if that distance was the answer you were afraid to hear? Not the clean kind of answer, the quiet one, the kind that leaves you staring at your phone, replaying every word, trying to decide if you imagined the connection or if they did. That ache in your chest is not confusion. It's your nervous system trying to make sense of a mixed signal that feels personal because it is. You didn't imagine the warmth. You didn't invent the late-night talks, the way their eyes softened, the way time slowed when you were together. And you didn't imagine the shift, the pause, the sudden space where closeness used to live. That swing between closeness and distance can make you question your worth. It can make you shrink. It can make you work harder, talk softer, ask for less. It can make you feel like love is something you have to tiptoe around, like one wrong move will send it running. But there is a different way to read this, a way that doesn't turn you into a detective in your own life, a way that doesn't turn your heart into a courtroom. Some people don't pull away because they don't care. They pull away because caring hits a place in them that still thinks closeness equals danger. For them, connection is not just a feeling, it's an alarm. It wakes up old stories in the body. Stories about losing control, about being trapped, about being needed more than they know how to give. So they do something that looks like indifference. They create space. They go quiet. They take longer to reply. They become careful with words that used to come easily. And from the outside, it looks like you're being erased. From the inside, it feels like they're trying to breathe. Here's the part that hurts to hear and helps at the same time. When someone like this gets close, their fear doesn't fade. It gets louder. The moment starts to matter. The stakes rise, and their nervous system chooses safety over risk, even if risk is the only way to build something real. So love comes out sideways, in pauses, in distance, in steps back that happen right after a step forward. That doesn't mean you should accept being kept at arm's length. It doesn't mean you should wait in silence or make yourself smaller to feel chosen. It means you can stop translating every quiet moment as a verdict on your worth. It means you can see the pattern without letting it rewrite who you are. It means you can hold two truths at once. Someone can care deeply and still not know how to stay present. Someone can feel something real and still move away from it. If you've been living inside this push and pull, you're not weak for wanting clarity. You're human. Your brain is wired to seek safety and connection, not in guessing games. The pain you feel is not drama. It's a signal. It's your system asking for consistency, for steadiness, for a place to land without bracing for impact. There is relief in understanding, but there is also power in choosing what you allow to shape your life. You don't have to chase closeness. You don't have to earn stability by proving you can survive confusion. You don't have to turn patience into self-erasure. When distance shows up, you get to notice what follows. Do they return? Do they reach out? Do they try, even in their imperfect way, to bridge the gap they created? That effort matters, not as a promise, but as information. And here is the quiet promise that changes how this feels. You can learn to read these signals without turning them into a story about your value. You can keep your heart open without keeping yourself on hold. You can stop waiting for certainty to arrive from someone else and start choosing it in how you move, how you speak, how you stay rooted in what you need. If an avoidant acts like this, it might mean something real is there. But your life is not a test you have to pass by enduring uncertainty. Love that grows is steady. It doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't ask you to become smaller so someone else can feel safer. You are allowed to want a connection that doesn't make you question your place in it. You are allowed to want a love that meets you where you stand, not one that only shows up when it feels brave enough. You don't have to keep living in a space where your heart is always waiting for permission to relax. You don't have to translate silence into hope or distance into potential. You don't have to keep proving that you're easy to lose and still worth keeping. There is a moment in every story like this where the truth stops whispering and starts demanding to be heard, and that moment is now. Because patterns are not accidents. They are messages written in behavior. When someone moves close and then vanishes, when they open up and then shut down, when they give you just enough to stay and not enough to feel safe, that is not chaos. That is a system. And systems don't change because you love them harder. They change because someone decides to face the fear that built them. Here is the hard line that sets you free. Understanding someone's wounds does not mean you have to bleed for them. Compassion is not self-erasure. Patience is not endurance. And loyalty is not waiting in the dark while your needs learn how to whisper. You can care and still choose yourself. You can see the struggle and still refuse to make it your home. Every time you stay silent to keep the peace, you teach your heart that peace is something you earn by disappearing. Every time you accept less than you need, you tell your nervous system that instability is normal. And your nervous system believes what you repeat. It learns the rhythm of waiting. It learns the posture of bracing. It learns how to call that love. But your body is not meant to live in suspense. Your mind is not meant to orbit someone else's fear. You are built for clarity. You are built for steadiness. You are built for a connection that does not make you rehearse exits in your head before you even arrive. This is where the urgency lives, not in forcing someone to change, not in chasing a version of them that only shows up in flashes. The urgency is in deciding what you will no longer negotiate away. The urgency is in choosing a standard that protects your future, not just your hope. When distance appears, notice what follows. Not the story you want to tell, not the excuses that soften the ache. Notice the action. Do they come back with presence or with just enough to reset the cycle? Do they meet you with clarity or with more fog? Do they build towards something solid or keep you suspended in almost? Almost is a dangerous place. It feels close enough to stay. It feels possible enough to wait. And it steals time in small, polite pieces until one day you realize your life has been organized around someone else's uncertainty. You deserve a love that moves forward, not in circles. You deserve words that match actions. You deserve a connection that doesn't make you decode silence like it's a second language. You deserve to rest inside what you're building, not hold your breath inside it. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. It doesn't make you demanding. It makes you clear. And clarity is not cruelty. Clarity is kindness to your future self. There is a version of you that stops negotiating with confusion. A version that speaks once and stands by it. A version that no longer mistakes intensity for depth or longing for alignment. That version is not louder. It is steadier. It doesn't chase. It chooses. And here is the quiet shift that changes everything. When you stop organizing your life around someone else's fear, you create space for something braver to meet you. When you stop shrinking to fit uncertainty, you become visible to consistency. When you stop waiting for permission to feel secure, you start building security in how you move, what you allow, and what you walk away from. If someone pulls away because closeness scares them, that explains the behavior. It does not excuse the cost. Love that grows does not require you to live in fragments. Love that lasts does not keep you guessing about your place. Love that is real moves toward you, even when it's hard. This is your turning point, not because someone else finally changes, but because you do. You stop asking how to be easier to keep. You start asking what kind of life you are willing to live. You stop waiting for certainty to arrive. You become it. And when you choose yourself this way, something powerful happens. You stop auditioning for stability. You stop translating distance into destiny. You stop confusing survival with devotion. You begin to build a life that can hold you, with or without anyone else catching up. That is not loss. That is leadership. That is not giving up. That is finally moving forward. That is what it looks like when you decide that your heart is not a waiting room. It is a home. When you decide that your heart is a home and not a waiting room, everything in your life starts to rearrange itself. You walk differently. You listen differently. You stop explaining your needs like they're a burden and start honoring them like they're a compass. This is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming honest. Honest with what you feel. Honest with what you need. Honest with what you will no longer accept. Because there is a quiet danger in staying too long in a story that keeps restarting at the same painful page. At first, it feels patient. Then it feels loyal. And one day it feels like you forgot how to imagine anything else. The cycle becomes familiar, and the familiar becomes comfortable, and comfort becomes a cage you call hope. But hope is not supposed to shrink your world. Hope is supposed to expand it. You don't need to turn your heart into armor to protect it. You just need to stop handing it to situations that only know how to hold it for a moment. Love that can't stay present will keep teaching you to doubt yourself. Love that can't move forward will keep asking you to pause your life. And every pause has a cost, even when it's quiet. This is where courage shows up in a form that doesn't look dramatic. It looks like choosing consistency over intensity. It looks like choosing peace over potential. It looks like choosing a future you can stand in over a story you keep rewriting. It looks like walking away from almost and making room for enough. There is nothing weak about wanting stability. There is nothing shallow about wanting to feel safe. Your nervous system is not asking for too much. It is asking for what it was designed for: to rest, to trust, to stop scanning the horizon for the next disappearance. When you stop chasing clarity from someone who lives in fog, you become clear. When you stop waiting for someone to be ready, you become ready. When you stop measuring your worth by how close someone can get without leaving, you start measuring your life by how fully you can show up without shrinking. This is not about punishing anyone. It's about protecting yourself. It's about refusing to keep translating inconsistency into mystery and calling it depth. Depth is not confusion. Depth is presence. Depth is staying. Depth is choosing again and again, not disappearing and calling it fear. You can hold empathy without handing over your future. You can understand someone's past without letting it dictate your tomorrow. You can love without losing your center. And you can leave without turning your heart into a courtroom that keeps arguing the same case. The moment you stop negotiating your needs is the moment your life starts to open. Doors appear where walls used to be. Space appears where pressure used to live. Your breath gets deeper, your thoughts get quieter, your standards get clearer. And clarity is not a threat to real love. It is the foundation of it. You are not here to manage someone else's avoidance. You are here to build something that can hold your whole self. You are not here to prove that you are easy to lose. You are here to experience what it feels like to be chosen without conditions. You are not here to survive on fragments. You are here to live in something whole. There will be a moment when the old pattern tries to call you back. It will sound familiar. It will sound convincing. It will sound like comfort dressed up as possibility. And you will feel the pull, because your heart remembers the highs as much as it remembers the hurt. But this time, you will remember the cost. This time, you will remember how much energy it took to keep yourself steady in a moving storm. This time, you will choose differently. Not because you are bitter, because you are awake. Not because you stopped caring, because you started caring for yourself. Not because you gave up on love, because you decided to believe in a version of it that doesn't require you to disappear. The strongest thing you can do is build a life that does not depend on someone else's fear loosening its grip. The bravest thing you can do is walk toward what is steady, even if your heart learned to crave what is uncertain. The most powerful thing you can do is become someone who does not wait to be chosen to start living. You are not too much. You are not asking for too much. You are asking for what allows you to grow. And growth does not happen in a holding pattern. It happens in movement. It happens in decisions. It happens when you stop orbiting someone else's limits and start expanding your own life. This is how you break the cycle. Not with anger, with clarity, not with blame, with direction, not by waiting for someone else to become ready, by deciding that you already are. And when you live from that place, everything changes. The kind of love you accept changes. The kind of future you build changes. And most of all, the way you see yourself changes. You stop being the person who hopes. You become the person who chooses. And that choice is where your real life begins. When you become the person who chooses, you stop waiting for the world to give you permission to breathe. You stop building your days around maybe. You stop treating uncertainty like a promise that just hasn't learned how to speak yet. You start moving with intention, and intention changes the shape of everything you touch. This is where momentum becomes real. Not loud, not dramatic. Real. It shows up in the way you hold your standards even when your heart remembers the rush. It shows up in the way you say no to patterns that once felt like home. It shows up in the way you refuse to trade your future for a familiar ache. The old pull will still exist. Familiarity has gravity. It knows your name. It knows your weak spots. It knows how to remind you of the good parts and blur the rest. But gravity only wins when you stop building strength. And you are building strength every time you choose consistency over chaos, every time you choose presence over potential, every time you choose peace over performance. There is a difference between intensity and intimacy. Intensity burns fast and leaves you guessing. Intimacy builds slowly and lets you rest. One keeps you alert. The other keeps you alive. One asks you to brace. The other invites you to soften. You are not here to live in a permanent state of readiness. You are here to live in a state of trust. Trust does not grow in mixed signals. It grows in repeated action. It grows in small promises kept. It grows in days that feel ordinary and safe. It grows when words stop being rehearsed and start being lived. This kind of trust does not steal your energy. It returns it. Every time you choose yourself, you reclaim time. Every time you set a boundary, you protect momentum. Every time you walk away from what keeps you small, you make space for what can hold you whole. This is not loss. This is alignment. This is not distance. This is direction. You are not responsible for someone else's fear learning how to breathe. You are responsible for your life learning how to move. You are not here to become an expert in waiting. You are here to become fluent in choosing. Choosing clarity. Choosing steadiness. Choosing a future that does not depend on someone else finally feeling safe enough to stay. There is a quiet pride that comes from keeping your word to yourself. It does not need applause. It does not need witnesses. It shows up in your posture. It shows up in your calendar. It shows up in the way your nervous system stops bracing for impact and starts expecting continuity. Continuity changes the way you see love. It stops being a test. It becomes a practice. It stops being something you chase. It becomes something you build. It stops being something you survive. It becomes something you live inside. The more you honor your needs, the less you argue with reality. The less you argue with reality, the faster your life begins to move. Movement does not always look like speed. Sometimes it looks like standing still and not going back. Sometimes it looks like saying no and not explaining. Sometimes it looks like choosing rest and not apologizing. You will notice a shift when your standards stop feeling like walls and start feeling like bridges. They do not keep love out. They guide the right kind in. They do not make you lonely. They make you available to something that can stay. They do not make you rigid. They make you clear. Clarity has a calm to it that chaos can't imitate. It does not spike your heart rate. It does not keep you guessing. It does not demand that you decode silence or translate distance. It speaks in actions. It shows up when it says it will. It remains present when things get real. You are allowed to want that. You are allowed to choose that. You are allowed to walk away from anything that keeps you rehearsing goodbyes in your head. You are allowed to build a life that does not revolve around someone else's hesitation. There is a future version of you that lives in steadiness. That version sleeps better. That version laughs without checking the room. That version plans without leaving space for disappearance. That version does not confuse relief with love or tension with depth. That version does not shrink to be kept. That version expands and is met. Becoming that version does not require perfection. It requires decision. Decision repeated. Decision protected. Decision honored. It requires choosing yourself when the old story tries to pull you back into familiar weather. This is how the cycle ends, not with a dramatic exit, with a consistent entrance into your own life, not with blame, with direction, not with waiting, with movement. You are not here to orbit uncertainty. You are here to build something that holds you. You are not here to prove you can endure. You are here to prove you can choose. And when you keep choosing what is steady, what is clear, what is real, you stop asking love to be brave for you. You become brave. And that changes everything. When you become brave in this way, you stop negotiating with the part of you that knows the truth. You stop quieting the signal that has been trying to guide you back to yourself. You stop calling restlessness a flaw and start recognizing it as wisdom that refused to go numb. This is not a small shift. This is the moment your life stops waiting for proof and starts creating evidence. Evidence looks like boundaries that hold even when your heart remembers the rush. Evidence looks like choices that feel calm instead of dramatic. Evidence looks like waking up without that familiar knot in your chest and realizing you didn't lose anything by choosing yourself. You gained space. You gained time. You gained the ability to breathe without bracing. The world will try to sell you intensity and call it passion. It will sell you confusion and call it depth. It will sell you absence and call it mystery. But your body knows the difference. Your body knows when it is safe. Your body knows when it is shrinking to fit a story that keeps rewriting the same ending. You are not here to become an expert in surviving uncertainty. You are here to build something that does not require survival mode. You are here to build days that feel sturdy, nights that feel quiet, plans that do not include backup exits. Love that does not need subtitles. There is a strength that grows when you stop chasing what keeps you on edge. It is not loud. It does not need to prove anything. It is steady. It shows up as patience with yourself. It shows up as discipline in your choices. It shows up as a refusal to romanticize what costs you your peace. Peace is not boring. Peace is spacious. Peace gives you room to become more of who you are instead of less of who you need to be to stay. Peace does not mean the absence of desire. It means the presence of safety. And safety is the soil where real connection actually grows. You will notice how different your standards feel when they are rooted in self-respect instead of fear. They stop feeling like walls and start feeling like invitations to something better. They stop being about control and start being about alignment. They stop being something you defend and start being something you live. Alignment changes what you tolerate. It changes what you chase. It changes what you call love. It teaches you to recognize effort without translating it into fantasy. It teaches you to recognize consistency without questioning it. It teaches you to let go of what only knows how to arrive in pieces. You do not need to be chosen by someone who keeps choosing distance. You need to be chosen by your own life. You need to be chosen by mornings that don't feel heavy. You need to be chosen by evenings that don't replay unanswered questions. You need to be chosen by a future that does not depend on someone else finally learning how to stay. This is not about becoming unfeeling. It is about becoming unmovable in your values. It is about refusing to build your world on maybe. It is about choosing foundations over fireworks. Fireworks fade, foundations hold. The more you practice this, the quieter your mind becomes. The quieter your mind becomes, the clearer your direction gets. The clearer your direction gets, the less tempted you are by familiar storms. You stop mistaking turbulence for meaning. You stop mistaking longing for alignment. You stop mistaking relief for love. You start to notice how good it feels to be met instead of managed. You start to notice how good it feels when someone's actions don't need translation. You start to notice how much energy you have when you're not spending it on waiting, guessing, or hoping something finally becomes what it keeps promising to be. There is a dignity in walking toward what is stable. There is a confidence in choosing what is clear. There is a freedom in building a life that does not revolve around someone else's fear loosening its grip. Freedom does not mean you never want. It means you no longer settle, and settling is the quiet thief. It steals in small compromises. It steals in polite silences. It steals in stories you tell yourself to make waiting feel purposeful. But purpose is not found in delay. Purpose is found in movement that respects your time. Your time is not a rehearsal. Your heart is not a placeholder. Your life is not a holding pattern. You are not here to be almost chosen. You are here to be fully lived. When you start living this way, you don't need to convince yourself to move forward. Forward becomes the only direction that makes sense. Back stops feeling like comfort and starts feeling like cost. You don't need to close every door with anger. Some doors close because you finally walked into your own life. This is not the end of wanting. This is the beginning of choosing. This is not the loss of hope. This is the upgrade of it. This is not you giving up on love. This is you refusing to call confusion love ever again. You are allowed to build something that lasts. You are allowed to want what stays. You are allowed to choose a life that does not require you to disappear to keep it. And when you do, you don't just change your story. You change the way your story is written